Well, good day, my friends. It's your old pal Jordan the Lion. How are you all doing today? I hope you said great. I'm great. We're in Athens, Georgia, and I'm actually here to see a concert of one of my favorite, it's kind of a music label, but it's hard to explain, called Elephant Six. And I thought, you know what? R.e.m. is also from Athens, and I love R.e.m. So today we're doing a vlog of all R.e.m. locations here in Athens. Daze with Jordan the Lion and you all. It begins right now. The band actually met while they were all here in Athens to go to University of Georgia. So here is the most famous record store in Athens, Wuxtry Records, and this is where Peter Buck was working in back when he and Michael Stipe were getting ready to attend University of Georgia here in Athens. And Michael Stipe came in here one day and was record shopping, and they started talking and became friends. And Michael Stipe said for like the first 3 months he called Peter Richard because he thought his name was Richard, and Peter never bothered to ever correct him or anything. So that's the way it went. They ended up from here moving in together, and we're gonna go over where that was. So let's go ahead and take a look at where Peter Buck used to work. So here's the store. I'm gonna buy some R.e.m, but I love a lot of Athens bands like the Gerbils and Apples in Stereo and Of Montreal, Liver Trivia Control, so we'll buy some of that while we're in here. They do have a local section, but that's where Peter Buck would have worked, right behind that counter. Pretty cool. Kind of a funny picture of Cindy Wilson up there. Some cool stuff. Like, actually, check this out. Mickey Dolenz did an R.e.m. cover album, and the cover was this record store. And I'm gonna go to a show tonight for Elephant Six over at the 40 Watt, so we'll get to see inside there. These are two must-have albums. Olivia Tremor Control, Black Foliage, and Neutral Milk Hotel, and the Airplane Over the Sea. And of course, they have R.e.m. So we'll definitely get some R.e.m. In fact, this is the one I want, so we'll get this because it has night swimming on it. So Peter Buck would have worked back here before they started R.e.m, and that was his first band. So I did stick to my word. I bought Neutral Milk Hotel, and I also bought Automatic for the People because I just love this record. And who knows, we could run into somebody from the band down here. Who knows? So now we've made it over to the remnants of an old church. I believe this was called St. Mary's Church. And this is just the steeple that's left. But when Michael Stipe and Peter Buck met in Wuxtry Records, they became friends. And they actually started living in the church that was right here. And a couple of weeks after they met, then they met Bill Berry, and they told Bill that they were looking to form a band. He said, I know a bass player. So they go to a bar to meet Mike Mills, and Mike had been overserved and he was drunk and he was screaming, waiting for his drink. He kept saying, I want to go to the bar to get my drink, but he was already there. So Michael Stipe said, there's no way. There's absolutely no way I'm going to be in a band with this guy. And then an hour later, they were in a band. He said when they got together, they started working on some songs that Bill Berry and Mike Mills had had a band in Macon. And they had a few songs, so they kind of worked on them in that practice. You can see over here, it says R.e.m. song, Pop Song 79. But they had a few songs from Macon, and they brought them to Peter and Michael and said that they were absolutely amazed with what they did to add to those songs. And so like right away they wrote like 3 songs together at the time, and then decided to throw a party here at the church. So they offered free beer, and They basically, by that time, had written like 10 songs and learned 10 cover songs. And they played this show. They said like 700 people came to this dilapidated old church to see them. And 3 of them were booking agents. And they were like, hey, you guys are great. Do you want a job? And they were like, are you serious? So that was kind of the way that it all started for them. Living and playing their first gig at this church. So I guess at one point the church was so bad, even when they lived here, in total disrepair, that the city finally wanted to tear it down. But people stood up for the steeple and said, you know, because of the R.e.m. history, we got to at least save this. So as you can see, this piece of their history still remains, one of the earliest pieces. And of course, like I said, it's got the R.e.m. Pop Song 79 right up there by the window. It all started here. Then that first EP was just electric. Chronic Town. That was an amazing little set of songs. Then Murmur. And speaking of Murmur, let's go over and see where the old trestle was. So if you fans of Murmur are looking in front of us, that's where the old trestle was. If you remember the back cover, it stood that way that you see it in the album art until about 2 years ago. And somebody decided they wanted to tear it down, and the people of Athens stood up and said, no, we don't want it to go away. We like it. So they basically had it assessed and realized that they would have to take apart a lot of it, but they wanted it so people could still walk across it again. And in the state it was in at the time, you couldn't. So they basically redid the whole thing in the same spot. So I'll kind of show you how they would have taken that photo. You notice right here that it changes over from steel to the wood. So this is basically how the back cover would have looked. I actually discovered that album because of Guided by Voices. They had covered Sitting Still. And when I was listening to that song with a friend of mine one day, he goes, that's an R.e.m. song. I go, no, it's not. He goes, yeah, it is, dude. That's an R.e.m. song. And then I went and listened to it. I'm like, God, I didn't realize how, like, the first 5 albums of Guided by Voices were basically like trying to be R.e.m. Pretty amazing if you go listen to it now. That's where the art was, right there, that photo. So here we are on Barber Street, which used to be known as the Avenue of the Stars. And when R.e.m. first started, they lived here and used to throw parties together. Once Michael and Peter moved out of the church, the whole group moved into here. And if you look up on the front steps, you can match up a famous photo. You can see the railing in the center that separates it. You can see the brick pillars over there. You can see the front door, and you'll see Mike Mills is over here, and then Peter and Bill's sticking his head out this little column over here, and then in the far back is Michael Stipe. So they have 2 kind of famous photos, one taken up there on the front steps, and they would say they would play a lot of the early parties, and when they were first getting going, 79, 80, this is where they were living. But there's also supposedly somewhere out here on this street, on the sidewalk actually, where they, in wet cement, all etched their names. But I wonder, there's another photo of them walking through some woods, and I wonder if it was in the backyard of this house. So now we've made our way over to Weaver D's Delicious Fine Foods. You can see it says automatic for the people, and this was the soul food restaurant, Southern home cooking, that they wrote the, well, they titled the Automatic for the People album after. We'll go and look around and I'll tell you why Mike Mills said that that would be a good title for the record. Here is Automatic for the People, We Are Daze. And I'm even gonna eat a meal here. There's the man himself, and he's here making the food. The way they came up with using this as a name is that Mike Mills said, when we made the album, we just figured like everything on the album was good, just like the food here. And the food here is Automatic for the People, so we just said we're gonna call the album Automatic for the People. So, great idea, Mike. Let me show you the menu. That makes it pretty dang easy, doesn't it? I never do this, but I think I might get the pork chops and gravy. And that's him.
From out of town?
There he is. Some cakes. Oh yeah, I'm excited for this food. So making our food now. I went ahead with 2 pork chops and gravy, and I'm getting some mac and cheese, and I might try some cobbler. And I'm getting the broccoli casserole, I guess. Looks like you get 2. Look at that. Cornbread, pork chops and gravy, macaroni and cheese, broccoli casserole. Holy moly, it's great. Place is busy. People have been coming in and picking up orders and placing orders since we got here. Oh, first bites, very good. Pork chop, first bites, amazing. Pork chops are good. Cornbread's good. I'm loving it. Been a little tricky to vlog today because they're shutting the streets down. But over on the other side here is another R.e.m. building. So over here, the top floor, the blue part of the building, was the offices of R.e.m. From 1995 until 2011, when they basically retired. That was where everything R.e.m. would go through, all their business, everything right out of there. Kind of cool that they did it all like right here in the main part of the town. We go look over at the doors and see if we can figure out. They were above 170, so their entrance probably would have been over here. You probably used to have to go up there. Lots of history right here just in the downtown. So here's a restaurant called The Grill, and above it was at 1.40 watt, the venue. They've had 5 different locations, and this was apparently number 3 of the 5. So here's the 40 Watt Club today. Like I said, it's had 5 different locations. It's a music venue slash tattoo parlor. So all of my favorite bands have played here. Any independent or indie band or any cool band, from R.e.m. to Guided by Voices to Apples in Stereo. 40 Watt Club, I think it's now owned by Peter Buck's ex-wife, but Peter and her used to own it together. So it is still one of the most popular venues in town, and they're having a show tonight that I'm going to, featuring, it's kind of a memorial to one of the members of the Elephant Six. So I'll get to show you the inside of the theater. But lots of history here, lots of shows here, and Peter and his wife, when they were together, owned it together, and now I believe she owns it solo. But the practice space that R.e.m. uses and has used for a long time is right behind this building. So let's go on in and see the inside of the 40 Watt. All right, here's the inside of the 40 Watt, and that's the stage that R.e.m. had their one song reunion, all 4 of them. So that's the 40-watt club right over there that Peter Buck and his wife owned. I believe she still owns it. But what is kind of fascinating is apparently this building is supposedly R.e.m's practice space. They have apparently been here for many, many years, and it's all kind of a secret, not secret kind of thing. And even though they retired over a decade ago, they still keep this in case they want to get together and just jam or whatever. At least that's what I was able to find online. And it's kind of fascinating because ironically, out of all the years I've wanted to come here, I finally just now got here. And about 3 weeks ago, they reunited right behind here at the 40 watt. Right in front of the warehouse, they have an Elephant Six pick, which is what I'm going to see tonight. Some of the Elephant Six bands. So I kind of wonder if that's their entrance, since this is all closed up. If this is where R.e.m. enters when they decide to practice, or when they practiced for the gig a couple of weeks ago. It's even possible that these 4 spots right over here that are constantly reserved, 4 spots, 4 band members, definitely could be. So here we have the historic Georgia Theater, and this was important because the band used to play, they never did an announced show here apparently, but they would do in 2001 an unannounced show here. And from what I saw online, they also say that they recorded some of their Shiny Happy People music video on the inside. Let's take a look. The architecture is just amazing. The doors. I guess the theater had a fire at some point, so they had to do a rebuild. But beautiful theater. So over here above this restaurant, Michael Stipe used to have his production company. It was paired production with his friend Jim McKay. They formed it. It was called the C100 Productions, and they formed it in 1987. It was kind of like an outlet for all their creative things. I don't know if C100 had American movie on it, but I was always amazed because a friend of mine back in 2000 showed me this amazing documentary about a guy trying to chase his dream making a horror movie, and the movie was amazing. And I always remember that Michael Stipe was one of the producers on it. So if you've ever not seen American movie, go see it. But Michael Stipe used to run his production company out of the top floor of this building. So we're in the historic district now, and there's a beautiful house coming up here right in front of us, right there, built in 1890. It's called the Jester Griffith Buck House, and the Buck comes from Peter Buck, guitar player of R.e.m. He and his wife apparently saved this house and restored it. There was some talk that at one point it was going to be knocked down. Look at that. Wow. But they stepped in and bought it and restored it. And even though I believe Peter and his wife divorced, she still lives here, and she's the one that owns 40 watt. That is a beautiful place. Look at that. I love everything about it. Looks like it could use maybe a new paint job, but other than that, the house is just spectacular. All the trimming and everything. Beautiful house. I'm sure he would have written countless riffs and songs and parts in here. Probably gave interviews in here. Gave interviews over the phone. A lot of history in this house. So I've heard for a while online that Michael Stipe actually bought like 2 or 3 houses on his street, all right beside each other. So I believe this is the first one, that this is the one that he cleaned everything out of and turned into like, basically like a party venue for him and his friends. Just kind of cleared everything out and made an open space. But I believe that he actually lives in this one. Looks like he's been doing a heck of a lot of lawn maintenance too. But I had seen that people had complained over time about his artwork and things like that, like those spirally things up here, but I like them. I think it looks kind of cool. So this is his house. I'm a huge Michael Stipe fan. I love his voice, I love his lyrics. I love pretty much all types of art that he's been part of, so cool to actually see where his creative process would take place. I kind of just noticed as I was taking a further step back that he's got a tin roof. That just kind of made me laugh because the B-52s, when Cindy Wilson yells out "tin roof rusted," just kind of one of those funny things. Then last thing, I wanted to come out and see this legend of Athens. I've read about this for a while and I just thought, you know, if I'm coming, I gotta see this. This tree is the tree that owns itself. Someone loved it so much that they purchased this plot of land and the 8 feet surrounding the tree so that it would always be safe. Isn't that great? So there's even a headstone. The original headstone is actually over there, but it's so worn out that they made a new one and put it over here, I read. So they both said the same thing. It says, "For and in consideration of the great love I bear for this tree and the great desire I have for its protection for all time, I convey entire possession of itself and all land within 8 feet of the tree on all sides. William H. Jackson." So this tree is deeded this piece of land and they can never remove him. Thank you everyone for watching. If you are not an R.e.m. fan, go listen to Night Swimming and I bet you'll become one. Goodbye from Athens, Georgia.